Well, this is an exciting episode because I believe this is the first time the Victory Degree podcast is going international. And so I am excited to announce our guest today. He is an Olympic gold medalist, he is a world champion, and he's joining us on the show today from Canada. Jerome Blake, welcome on, my man.
Hey man, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Jerome, I figured we'd start here. Obviously, there's a lot to get into with your journey and your story. But you tweeted on October 9th, 2023, you said, IKEA is my favorite place to hang out. And so I'm curious, is that still true today?
Yep. Yeah, man, I love IKEA. I don't care what nobody says. See, the thing is that everyone look at furniture shopping as one of those things where, oh man, you gotta go spend lots of money in furniture. IKEA got great furniture, if you ask me. Like, it just come out of the box, you just put it together with a couple screws and a couple bolts, and it's good to go. And they got food in IKEA, man. They got everything IKEA. So IKEA is like a grown folks happy place.
Have you have you heard that? I don't think it's a study. I think it's just something people say. It's like if you're dating someone, one of the best ways to test out to see if you guys are meant for one another is to go to IKEA, buy furniture, and then try to put it together. Because it's like this whole thing about teamwork and whatever. So I don't know. It might be true.
Hey man, it's probably one of the most frustrating things to do is put furniture together with somebody that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can learn patience pretty quickly putting together furniture with someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, dude, I will back you up on IKEA. I love IKEA. I mean, like you said, the food, just like even if I don't need anything from IKEA, like I will go to IKEA just to look at, like they have like the showrooms and whatever
Yep.
set up. Like it's so much fun.
Laying on beds, just testing out beds, couches, look at room setups. Like, oh, it's a great idea. When I get my house, I'm gonna put this in there, that in there. And I gotta say, they do have really cool what's that thing called? Like, when you walk in and then they have like it's like the when like it's like the different rooms that they have set up. It's like every time you go to a different one, like the feng shui is so different. So it's
Mm,
like this the
mm.
setup is like, okay, it's like you walk in the bedroom section and it's like, oh man, this does feel like a bedroom. Walk in the bathroom, it does feel like a bathroom. So it's like a pretty
Yeah.
cool setup.
Yeah, it's like you like one room is like modern whatever and
Yeah.
then the other room is
Yeah.
like, they have like different themes and stuff. Laying on beds that I know I'm never going to buy is like one of my favorite things to
Hmm.
do. It's like
Yeah.
this Tempur-Pedic, now they have like the cooling beds, like I think it's Eight
Yeah.
Sleep that you can like
Yeah.
adjust the temperature. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm not in a position to buy that right now. It would be cool,
Yeah.
but I'm probably not going to get that.
Sponsor maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If you're listening. All right, well, we could talk about IKEA all day, and I'm sure we have a lot more
Right.
thoughts on it. But Jerome, this podcast is about you, about your journey, about your story, and kind of just ending up in this position where you're an Olympic gold medalist. Which, if you told, little Jerome from Buff Bay, Jamaica, hey, one day you're going to be an Olympic gold medalist representing Team Canada, you'd probably say there's no way that's ever going to happen. But yet here you are. So let's start with Jamaica and that portion of your life. What do we need to understand about your childhood to understand who you are today?
Right. I mean, I think Jamaica made me the person I am today. Like, it made me the strong, resilient, well matured, well experienced person I am today. Because growing up in Jamaica is one of those things you have to come of age like early. In a sense, when I say come of age, it's like you have to understand how life works. You can be book smart, but you also got to be street smart, and you also got to understand like when to say something, when not to say something, how to move in certain places. And I think that's a lot of things that happen in the world and in places where a lot of people don't understand how to move and nor how to like um associate themselves or add them or put themselves in a situation without putting themselves in a situation. So for me it's like Jamaica is one of those places where it's near and dear to my heart. It's still home. I still got family there, but Jamaica's still home. Whenever I get a chance to go back, I'm excited to go back and just visit friends and family that I have there.
What's what's the culture like in Jamaica? Just the environment that you grew up in.
For me, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I grew up in a rough and tough neighborhood and all this kind of no. Like I grew up in the countryside. I'm from Portland. I'm like this where most of the tourists in Jamaica go. Whenever they get to Jamaica, they end up going on these tours and they go to Portland. Like Jamaica, Portland is like mostly lush forests, lots of farmlands, lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. Lots of cool people that take life easy and just do what they do. Like either they work in the fields, or they're teachers or doctors, or like there's a lot of that there. So for me, it's just like that's what I grew up around. Like very cool, easygoing people. So that's kind of how I grew up. And I grew up with my grandparents. So for me, it's like, yeah, like nothing's ever too serious, but when it needs to be serious, it is serious.
Were sports ever a thing for you growing up in Jamaica? Like, did you have aspirations to become a professional athlete, or was it something that you did for fun with friends, or just kind of your relationship with sports back then?
Nah, it's never something I thought I could ever do professionally, because like the, being a professional athlete is no roadmap. It's not a thing where you're like, okay, I'm gonna, I'm, it's especially in track and field. Track and field is one of those things where it's just like you just do it and you get really good at it and you're lucky enough to get certain things. That's kind of what it is until you get to the top of the sport. Because like growing up in Jamaica, there's no real roadmap or how to understand how to do certain things. And if there's one thing I could change, that's definitely a thing I would change whenever I get the opportunity. That's definitely something I want to work on and how to change that. But yeah, growing up, it was more or less just doing it for fun. Because growing up in Jamaica, like if you do sports and you're really good, especially if you're on the track team, or and any teams, and the team's doing well, like I mean, they get a lot of attention. You get the girls, all this kind of stuff. That's kind of why I did it. And all my friends did sports, so that it was more or less just to hang out with my friends.
You mentioned that there's no roadmap. What would
Right.
be, if you had to put together a roadmap? What would that look like?
I think the steps that you need to take, and a lot of people think you need to go the NCAA route and perform well in college and all this kind of stuff. But I think we live in a day and age now where technology is so prolific and the internet is so big. You can find anyone anywhere in the world you are, like you see kids coming from like all these small islands and small countries performing really well because people post videos of them competing online and just stuff like that. So for me, it's more or less just like try to tell kids like, okay, there's no real right way or wrong way. You can go about it any different way you want to, and still get the same results. It might just take a little bit of a time, but just understand like the process of it. Explain the process of it and what makes sense and what don't make sense, and try to pave a way that is easiest for that person, that'll put them in the right place at the right time, I feel.
That's an interesting point because we had, so the two examples that come to mind, we had TT Terry on maybe a couple months ago. And, growing up in Miami, she went to USC. So she went to a big D1 school, obviously excelled there. And she's now where she is, one of the best
Right,
sprinters in the world on the women's side. And then we had Trevor Bassett on the show, who is a 400-meter hurdler who went to a D2 school in
right,
Ohio and came out of there, tried out for Team USA, did well at the Eugene World Championships, and kind of burst onto the scene that way. So it's like two very different examples of, TT coming from, big city, Miami, going to a big school. And then you have Trevor, who comes from a small city in Ohio, goes to a D2 school. But, they both end up in similar positions where they're representing Team USA at the highest level.
right. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. It's different ways to go about it. Because even for me, like I never went the traditional way. I had scholarships when I was in high school. I was one of the fastest high schoolers in Canada. I ran 10.3 in high school, over 100 meters. So like I was fast in high school, but I didn't take any scholarships. I decided to turn pro at a high school. So I did that. I mean, of course, like it was a lot of struggle and trial and error with that, because it's one of those things where I didn't really, the idea of being, oh yeah, I'm a professional athlete, from high school, is that was cool. I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into. And it took a couple years of me getting knocked down to really realize, okay, like I really need to actually invest a lot more time and effort into this. And I can't just, in a sense, I can't go halfway. I have to go full on. So that's the only way you're going to make it to the top. And that's kind of what I did.
We'll get to your high school experience. But I want to get to the move from Jamaica to Canada. So I believe you arrived in Canada June 30th, 2013. And I'm
Yep.
sure that was a surreal moment for you. Canada's a beautiful place. I mean, we
All
were
right.
joking about, I was born in Vancouver, but it just culture shock, I'm assuming, is like the word that comes to mind. But if you could just explain what went into that move and then just coming into Canada, like what were your initial thoughts?
I wouldn't say it was a culture shock, but But yeah, moving to Canada was definitely a big thing because imagine growing up in a small community with everyone you know is all your friends, cousins, and those are all people you grew up with from your like 6 months old till you're like till I was 15 years old. Those are everyone I know was like all my cousins because my grandma had 10 kids, so all my cousins are like all my friends are all my cousins. Like all my uncle's kids are my aunt's kids, so like we're all friends. And moving away from all of that is almost like being pulled away from a circle that I've always known. And I think the toughest part about moving to Canada was making new friends because coming from a place where you're you have to act a certain way and behave a certain way is very different than coming to Canada when like if something happens, the first thing people do is tell their parents. Like back home, if something happens, I tell my parents I go to school, everyone's gonna clown you for like you just tell your parents everything. So it's like here, like it's one of those things where like you almost have to like adapt a certain type of lifestyle and just like move with that and just like take that as okay. Yes, I'm in Canada now. I have to learn how to act a little less than I would in Jamaica because if I start acting like I would in Jamaica, all these kids will be afraid of me. And that's the one thing I realized first. Like somebody make you mad, you say something, everyone is all shocked. And you get in an argument with somebody, everyone's like, "Oh, meet me at 12 at the flagpole." I ain't gonna meet you at 12 at the flagpole, bro. You do something to me it's right now. See, you see what I'm saying? It's like you set a date and go, no, we ain't setting no date. It's right now, right here. That's kind of what it is. And and I think that's the thing I had to get out of my head. Like I can't be like that. So it's like different things I had to relearn and make friends along the way. I'm lucky enough to meet and cultivate the group of people I have around me now. They're all from all over Canada, but I'm lucky enough because of sports, I was able to meet all these people. And now these are my best friends, and these are the people who I call for anything that happens. These are the people I rely on right away for anything I need, and vice versa. They're the same way.
So I think of Kobe Bryant for this reason. So he, um, you know, pretty much grew up in Italy for most of his childhood. I think he moved to Philly when he was maybe 13, 14. And he talks about how when he moved to Philly, he was like, it was a culture shock for him because growing up in Italy, obviously very different than going to school in Philadelphia. And for him, sports, obviously basketball, were an escape where he didn't really know how to fit in with people outside of the world of basketball. But once you get him a ball and a hoop, I mean, that's all he knew. So he kind of used that as a bear, kind of as a stepping stone into ingraining within the culture of Philly and then obviously the United States. Was sprinting and track and field similar for you in the sense that you viewed it as an escape, or was it something that you kind of just picked up, realized you maybe were good, or maybe people around you realized, hey, Jerome has some talent for track and field, and then it kind of escalated from there?
It's a bit of both, honestly, because when I moved to Canada, I was already doing track and field in Jamaica, so it's something I've always done. But I was a jumper and I did some running, I did hurdles, I did everything, like. But when I moved to Canada, that's when I met my first coach, Pat, and that's when we had a conversation, and she's like, "You could really be good at this," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know, but we'll see." So I trust her word, and I took it for what she said, and I went with it, and we did a lot of work and put of course, a lot of days and time went into it, and for me to really believe that I could really do it, and yeah, and that's kind of what really sparked the interest of actually pursuing sprinting. So just her trusting and believing the process of what actually me trusting and believing the process of what she's telling me that I could really do it, and that's kind of how it went.
That transition from doing a sport just you laughed about it earlier to impress girls or whatever the case may be, but then actually taking it seriously and taking it, I'm sure there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that, and that transition is pretty apparent. Talk a little bit about just when you decided to take track and field seriously as you do today. How did your life change? What were some of the sacrifices that you had to make?
I think everything really changed in 2020 because so
Mm.
before I even started taking the sport serious, I wouldn't. Most people don't believe when I wouldn't train. Like I spend most of my time doing modeling and acting because I do that as well. So I'm not, by no means I'm saying people should do this. Like the thing what I because again, like I was doing club track. So club track versus professional track is very different. So I'm running club track thinking that's it. Like I'm made it, you know, like just running club track. The only time I really face people who will probably beat me is when I go to Canadian Nationals. That's when I would go up against people like Aaron Brown and Andre and Brendan and Gavin and all those guys that were there at the time. And that's only when I would face those people. So before that, we if we have 20 races, I'll win every single one off 3 days, 4 days of practice here and there. So I knew exactly what I was getting into. Like today's Wednesday, Saturday I got to meet. I know exactly who I'm racing on Saturday. I know exactly what the results gonna be. It's just how close they're gonna get. So that's pretty much how it is. And, for me, it was just, okay, like, are we going to take this serious or not? And then, when COVID happened, that's when I was like, okay, like when COVID happened, I couldn't really do it anymore. I was like, okay, this is kind of strange for me because I'm used to just waking up, going to training or going doing this. So you can't do anything when COVID started. So that's when, at that point, I already had an agent and I'd made my first Canadian team in 2019 for Doha, but I didn't run. I was just there as an alternate. And, I met some people from Nike there and ended up getting a Nike offer. So I had that Nike thing going. And, I got told, hey, like, if you don't perform during 2020, like, would you listen to what we say and, like, would you move and go somewhere else to train with a coach that we want you to train with? And I was like, okay, cool. So in 2020, COVID happened, and in September of 2020, that's when I really started taking track serious when I moved to Florida to train with Dennis Mitchell.
You mentioned signing with Nike. I've always been curious
Yeah.
how those negotiations work. Like, how does that happen?
Well, for me, it was done the opposite way around. Like most people, you either again, like say I said, this where it comes down to comes again. So there's two sides to this, right? You go to college and you run the NCAA system and you perform well, and then you get a shoe contract because you perform well in college. You do everything you need to do. You get an agent, and that's how it is. For me, I never went to college, so for me, it's like the opposite way. So I run in club track. So they're looking at what I do in club track, and they said, club track is club track. It's not high level. You're not competing against anyone. You're like 20 meters ahead of everybody. So we want to see what you do against the real big guys. Like, how are you going to do when you got to line up against Justin Gatlins of the world, Kenny's and Noah's and all those people? How are you going to do then? So that was basically my testing period. It was 2021 was my testing period, the Olympic year, and how are you going to do? And I lined up with all those guys, and I did really really well, and that's kind of what sparked them to okay, we're going to actually sign into a longer term contract and stuff. So that's kind of how that all came about.
I'm thinking about your journey and I'm thinking about the fact that you started taking sprinting seriously pretty late compared to maybe other people who had been doing it since they were 8, 9, right? Like early childhood. And then I think about like other examples where this is prevalent. Like basketball is one where you had Hakeem Olajuwon, arguably the best center of all time, who picked up basketball, I think when he was like 16, 17. And even when he picked it up, he was playing handball and he was like, well, I guess I'll just split my time 50-50 between handball and basketball.
Right.
Um, he obviously picked the right sport because he ended up being, again, one of the best centers of all time. And then I also think about like a more recent example, like Joel Embiid, who picked up basketball again, 16, 17, pretty late, but it clicked almost immediately. And, he's now one of the best centers in the league. So it's like all these examples, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's the norm, right? But like you have these examples, these outliers of people who pick up a certain sport late, but it seems like they just have an overwhelming amount of talent that kind of propels them to the next level. When I think about your journey, like do you ever sit there and think like, oh man, like do you have any regrets with when you decided to pick up sprinting seriously? Do you ever think like, man, if I had started, taking this seriously early on, I would have been, even better than I am today?
Uh, with that, honestly, no, I don't. You know why? Because I, I feel like everything that happened and the way it happened, it was supposed to happen that way. That's the one thing I try not to question anything. If it's supposed to go that way, it's gonna go that way, and that's how it went, and I'm okay with it because as long as I know now, I'm putting my best foot forward, and I'm training hard. I'm working hard towards my goals. I know everything's gonna be okay. And if I don't achieve anything else after this, all I know is at least while I could. I did everything I really could and I achieved a lot, and I'm very happy and thankful for what I've achieved so far. But at the same time, I feel like it's one of those things where, like, going more deeper and investing more time into it younger, I feel like it maybe would have hindered me now, because maybe I wouldn't have loved the sport the way I do now. I think, like, taking it serious, 4 years ago, that's what made it really special for me, because now I have such a deep love for the sport, to the point where now I'm more of a student. I'm learning new things, and like it's almost like teaching a old dog new tricks. So like I'm learning more and I'm understanding the sport more. So every day I go to train, I'm like, oh man, I want to learn how to do this more. So now it's like the more you learn, the better and the more exciting it's gonna get for you. And for me, I'm 29. And I feel like my best days are ahead of me, because like I have so much more thread left on the wheel, because I started late in a sense of my training age compared to most people who are my age. They've been doing this since they're like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9. And so they spend so many years training really hard, so their bodies start breaking down. For me, it's like I'm 29. I feel like I feel like a 23-year-old. Like I recover super fast. I'm ready to run. Just happy to compete and stuff. So for me, it's yeah, just go out there, put my best foot forward all the time.
What is it about track and field that you love and that continues just bringing you back in?
The individual aspect of it, um, it's you and you alone. If you don't do the work, it's gonna show. It's one of those sports where it doesn't matter how much you talk and how much you say. If you don't do the work, it's gonna show. And you know when it's gonna show? In July and August. That's when everything's turned up. At that point, you can't. It's nothing you can really do to get better after that, unless you race yourself in shape, run a bunch of races. But it's at that point, everyone's on fire. Everyone's gonna see, okay, you didn't do the work. You're just talking. And then I think it's one of these things where running really fast and pushing the human body past barriers where it's not supposed to go, that intrigues me even more than anything else. Like, not a lot of people can say they've pushed their bodies to the extreme limit and understand what your body can do. It's gonna hurt, but at the end of the day, like, it's one of those things where it's an exciting aspect of it. Like, you understand how far you can push your body and push your body to those limits. Like, it's a different thing on your mindset. And I've spoken to a lot of retired athletes, and I was like, hey, like, what do you miss most about the sport? And you think most people would say, oh, the traveling, the experiences, seeing different countries and all. Everyone misses the aspect of running fast. It's just the adrenaline you get from it's just the feeling you get from like running really, really fast.
One of the things that continues to amaze me is, and for people who have listened to our other episodes with, fellow Olympians like TT Terry and Trevor, I've asked them the same exact question, but I'll ask you as well because I continue to just find it amazing, the amount of pressure that you guys deal with. And by pressure, I mean in the sense of you have pretty much one race, right? I mean, you have multiple races, but
Yeah.
you have one shot essentially, right? Like when you're running on the relay team in the finals at the Paris Olympics, if you don't have it that day, guess what? There is no other opportunity. Like that's
Yep.
it.
Yep.
I think about basketball, the NBA. I think about football, where you have seasons, where you have quarters, where within a game there's ebbs and flows, and players start off slow and then they pick it up, or vice versa. You guys, man, it's like again, if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed that day, you're done. So
Yep.
how do you manage that? Like, how do you deal with that pressure?
Um, it's a process, right? So like, and that's a cool thing about it, because it's such a huge process that starts like months and months before. So for me, like, I have a sports psych, so I work on my sports psych day in day out and try to create different scenarios. What happens in this scenario? What do you do? Like, so whenever things get tough and like complicated, what do you do? Like, those are the things, and you work on those things. So when it gets to a high pressure situation, you already know how to deal with it, because all year you've put yourself in high pressure situations, from like traveling across the world to go compete, and competing in front of thousands of people throughout the year. Like, but of course, going to the Olympics and running an Olympic final is not easy. It's one of those things where it's like it's pressure, and then there's that. Like, the Olympic final is a whole different thing than just like a normal final, and it just being there and just understand, okay, like, how we're gonna approach this is just, have a process. Like for me, like getting ready for that is like I have a hour long process before I even go to the track. So it's like before I even get to the track, I already start my process of preparing myself to go do that. I'm preparing myself to walk in the city, I'm preparing myself to warm up, preparing myself for the competition, preparing myself for what's gonna happen, like the good or the bad. So for me, it's like preparing like the whole process before it even happens. So, you're not thinking yourself through it, but you're preparing yourself for what's gonna come. Because if you don't prepare, you don't know how to deal with it when it comes. So, you know, packing your bag takes a time, so you pack your bag, you get ready, you take out your clothes, you know exactly what you want to wear, like, and you take your time, you do all that. So you almost want to do it slow enough so your body is not rushing, you're not, you know, out of your comfort zone. So you try to do everything and make yourself very comfortable and grounded and relaxed. And that when you do it like that, it forces your body to just relax.
Let's get into the hour long preparation.
Right,
Because I'm curious what you go through, and
right,
like the mental side of sports has always fascinated me because we see the athleticism. It's something that we can measure, right?
right,
Like you have a time. Like when you cross that finish line, that is the time that you have. It's measurable. When we compare it to other people, right? It's very out there. The brain and the mental side of things, not a lot of people have access to that, and arguably you are
right,
the only person who knows what's happening inside your own head.
right.
So if you could lead us through that hour long preparation, what are you telling yourself? What are you going through?
Yeah, and I'm gonna be real and candid with you. Like for me, like I've heard it my whole life. Everyone's like, "Oh, like you're not made for high level performance. You're not made for high level competition." Da da da. Because of course we're all humans who make mistakes. Like it's I've never met a perfect human on this planet, and if he's out there, I would love to meet him. I've never met a perfect human. We've all made mistakes. We've all had bad days, and you just have to make sure your bad days and your bad moments are less than your good ones when you're performing at a high level in track and field. And it's one of those things where, for me, like this process is, packing my bag and from like having lunch, my last meal, to packing my bag, making sure I have both my spikes or and I have my competition top and I have my number and I have the right music playing before I leave. So you start off with very slow songs that you can sing along to. For me, like honestly, like I start with like Adele, Shania Twain, Serena Ryder, like just very slow, like just like things I can like sing to and just get a little bit of vibe going because you don't almost want to like get like too angry and too excited and too pumped up because that can also cause problems too because adrenaline is like one of those things where your adrenaline spikes and then having adrenaline dump when you go in the stadium is like one of the scariest things, like your legs can't even move, and which that's happened to me before, things like that has happened to me before. So I've experienced that and just understand that like my process versus everybody else's process is different. So for me, some people just like wake up and go. For me, like I wake up, meditate, visualize how I want to execute this run and how well I want to run. And I don't really think about the what could go wrong. I think about what could go right if we get it right. So that's kind of what you do. You forward think stuff. You think about how perfect you're gonna be, which there's no such thing as perfect. Because even in the Olympic final, me and Aaron bobbled the baton. So it's one of those things.
Right. I it's funny that you say thinking about everything that could go right instead of things that could go wrong. And I think most people have a tendency to do the latter, which is to always to think about what could go wrong and to visualize negativity. Like if you have, a big presentation at work, you're like, oh man, what if I get up there and I forget what I'm going to say? Everybody laughs at me. Like you almost like you do it to yourself and you start going down this path where it's you're torturing yourself with your own
Right.
mind. But then to flip that switch and to say, well, what if it goes perfect? Like what if it goes really well? What if I get up there and I say everything well? Everybody says, hey, great job. So it's like this, and I don't know why it's so hard for us to think that in that manner, think positively and to think that things are going to go well. But you have seemingly figured out a way to do it. Is there like an exercise that you do or that people could do just like in their day-to-day life to maybe start down that road of thinking more positively?
Honestly, I think with that starts with you and you alone. Like the thing is like No one knows what you're going through but you, and no one knows you but you. So whatever works for you, do that. And I think the thing is why people overthink stuff sometimes is like you try to do something new. It's almost like, so if you're a boxer, right? You go in a boxing ring. And the most important thing is keep your hands up right here, right? You're not gonna go to a boxing ring and lead with your head like this. Say, what? You're gonna get knocked out. So you gotta stick to the fundamentals of what got you there. So for me, it's like I stick to what got me there, which was believe in me. Like no one's gonna. This might sound crazy to most people, but like it's a fact. No one's gonna believe in you more than you. If you don't believe in yourself more than yourself, no one else will. You, of course, you need to have people around you who believe in you as well. That also helps. Because the thing is, if you trust somebody else to always tell you the right things and be there for you, then that's easy to trust that person and believe that person, right? So, of course, you need that. You need a small circle, a good group of people that's gonna always keep you grounded, but also keep you focused on the task at hand, which is important. And I think self-belief, it starts with you. Self-belief is the most important thing. So I think the thing is that you learn to believe in yourself first, then you can look for outside help. And I think that's the most important thing is trusting and believing in yourself.
Do you ever have moments where you struggle with confidence?
Yep, all the time.
How do you get past
All
that?
again, go back to the fundamentals, go back to what got me there, go back to what put me in this. So, for instance, like this year, perfect example. This year. So this year is just like this what. So every so it depends on the length of like your shoe deal or whatever it is. You know, there comes a time where you're either in your option year or your last year of your contract. So for me, this year was my option year, and it's one of those things where you either perform well and then things don't go well and you get extended or you get a new deal based off how you perform. But for me, like it was make it or break it. Like I switched coaches, like I had all these things against me. I switched coaches to a different coach, go into a system where sometimes like you go to a new program, it clicks right away, or it takes some time to click, right? So for me, like start off the year like running poorly, and I'm like freaking out, like losing my mind because I can't make anything shake. Like it doesn't matter what I do, I'm training very hard, I'm competing very bad, and I hurt my foot, I'm struggling with injuries and stuff, and everyone just kept saying like, "Oh, what's up with Jerome? He switched coaches. He's doing well. He's running bad." And for me, I was freaking out, and then barely made it onto the Olympic team for Paris. I finished sixth in my hundred in the finals in Canadian nationals in the 100 meters, and barely made the team. And went to Paris, and just for the 4x1, and I did my thing there, and we ended up winning a gold medal. And then the week after that, my coach told me take a week off. He said, take a week off. You need a break. Take a week off. Before that, going into Paris, the fastest I ran was 10.15 seconds. My PR is 10.00 seconds. So 10 flat, almost 9 seconds. So going like after the Olympics, I mean, of course, like all the pressure's off. You finish the Olympics, like you've achieved this really big thing. You're getting a lot of attention. Everyone's reaching out, trying to get you to do stuff. And he told me, take a break, take the time you need. So I took a week off, no training. The second week, it was training, day off, training, day off, training, day off. Flew home back to America to train with my coach again. Basically from there, then trained for like 8 days with my coach. Then I had to fly back to Europe to compete. On the way back to Europe, a flight got delayed 6 hours in Washington, Dulles. Then flew to Germany, missed my connection in Germany, stayed in the airport for 8 more hours, got on a plane that night, flew to where I need to go to compete, then drive 4 hours to the hotel, wake up the next day at 10 a.m. to go to a press conference from 11 till 1 p.m. and then go practice and then go to bed, wake up to compete the next day. With all that being said, all that adversity, everything I've faced, I went out, ran the first run of the 100. I was like, okay, that didn't feel so good. Called my coach. He said, he watched it. He said, you look okay, but you just made this mistake. Made one mistake. And I was like, okay, cool. She says, go back, just focus on this one thing. Go back, re-warmed up, went, ran the finals, ran 10:01, 10.01 seconds, 0.01 off the fastest time I've run my entire life. after all of everything I've faced throughout the year, everything that whole week. And the only thing I focused on was the one thing my coach told me to work on. Imagine if I think, oh man, I flew here, I'm tired, like all this kind of stuff. Those are the things I tell myself, I'm tired. Yeah, I'm tired. Everyone else back here looks tired. What am I gonna do? Tell myself I'm tired and not go out there and compete? It's one of those things where I believed in me that day. I trust the fact that I know I'm in great shape. I feel really good. I'm gonna run fast. And I will positive vibes and positive thoughts into my body and go run something really fast.
Yeah, I think about like the victim mentality, right? Like when people say, "Well, if only this had gone my way," or "Man, like if only this had happened, I would have made it." And people always rely on excuses from the external, but rarely focusing on what you can control. We had Remont Harris. He was a running back for the Chicago Bears, and he always says the phrase "control the controllables."
Yeah,
So control what you can, like whatever's in your power. Make sure you do it at
yeah.
100%, and everything else leave it to the outside world.
And it's fact. It's true. And I think the thing is like, and with you saying that, a lot of people play the victim. I feel like there's no such thing as like blaming somebody else for your misfortunes. Like I really think people are victims of their own decisions. Decisions and choices are what kill a lot of people. Like it kills a lot of dreams. Because the thing is like everyone thinks like, oh, I need to go here because this person is here. You don't need to go where the big names are. Big names don't really have to do nothing with it. If you're in a situation where you're doing everything you need to do, it will work out. All you just need to focus on what you can control. Like if you're a track athlete, focus on training hard. Like, and if you're a football player, focus on football. Don't worry about like being the loudest person out there so people can find you because of, I'm gonna be the loudest out here. No, like just focus on your talent and do the work that way, and then everything will work out.
If you're a podcaster, focus on podcasting.
I mean, it's if that's what works. So that's kind of how I see it.
Right. And it's also the notion of 1% better every day. There's that
Right.
graph. I don't know if you've seen it where it's like, if you get 1% better each day, if you multiply that out by a year, you're like 38 times better than you were at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Versus I forget what the math is, but like if you're 1% worse, you end up, whatever, 20 times worse than you were at the beginning of the year. And so I feel like, especially in today's day and age where everything is so quick, everything happens with social media, with just the landscape of our culture, people almost have this expectation that things happen quickly, and that this theory of overnight success. Like I don't know if you've seen it. I have never seen an overnight success. Like all these
No.
overnight successes that you think you see, it's like the iceberg, right? Like you see the tip of
Right.
the iceberg, you don't see what's underneath. Same thing
Right.
with overnight successes. You see the tip, which is, oh my God, Jerome Blake. Like, wow, just won a
Right.
gold medal. Like this happened overnight. What they don't see is all the hours, all the training that you did, all the hard work you had to put in.
Right.
And I think if people just realize how much work it took to get to certain levels, I think
Right.
ultimately it would help them, because I think it would show that luck does play a part, but a lot of it is up to you, and a lot of it is up to the work that you
Yeah.
want to put in.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, see, the one thing with me is like I don't. This may sound funny, but like I personally don't believe in luck. I don't think luck is real because in theory, where luck comes in is if you buy a lottery ticket and you win. That is luck. With being a professional athlete and being actually not even just being a professional athlete, doing anything that requires a lot of work and takes a lot of effort, there's no luck involved there. That takes effort, hard work, and dedication to something that is, I don't want to say impossible, but it is pretty much impossible. Like especially being a track athlete, right? For us, most people would think, oh yeah, like you know how exactly how you're gonna perform with a for instance, for us, it's like driving down a tunnel in your sports car with no idea if there with no lights. You're just driving down a dark tunnel with no lights and expect it's smooth road. There's no roadblocks in the way. You're just driving, thinking, okay. I'm gonna reach to the end. There's gonna be a light down there. That's kind of what you're thinking driving down this tunnel. But it really and truly, like you're gonna drive down this tunnel, you're gonna hit a couple walls, you're gonna hit a couple curbs, you're gonna probably get a couple flat tires on the way. Like, it's just you having to figure out, okay, how am I going to bounce back? What am I gonna do when these things come up? Like bouncing back from injuries, especially like hard ones, are the hardest things for athletes in of any caliber. Doesn't matter how doesn't matter your level or what you're competing in. It's the hardest thing. And for me, like I've gone through the ringer when it comes to that. This year I hurt my foot really bad in April. So the beginning of the year, the week before World Relays, I pretty much broke my foot. And I went to World Relays, ran on that, and then after that it was more or less trying to get my foot better the entire season after that. So it's one of those things where, competing with that, even at the Olympics, and most people don't even know, just see me running on the track like a crazy person. And everyone is just like, oh, wow, like Jerome did so well. But behind the scenes, nobody really knows what's going on. So it's one of those things. And then you go out there and you say something like, oh, man, my foot hurts. Everyone's going to be like, oh, why'd you go on the track? That's kind of how professional sports is.
Your analogy of the tunnel reminds me of a quote that I just saw this morning. The quote says, "Courage is not knowing where the finish line is and going as hard as you can."
Yeah, that's pretty much how it feels. It's just going as hard as you can every single day and just trying to get the best out of each day and just make it count for whatever it is on that day and that day alone. And for me, it's one day at a time. Like, yes, I have an entire season. I can't start thinking in December, man, I'm gonna run so fast down the road because uh, that's not how it is. For me, it's just okay. Like it's December, but I got a lot of work to do. So that's kind of how I see it.
If you, let's say in an alternate universe, you put in the same amount of work, you do the same amount of training that you already have, but you don't end up becoming an Olympic athlete, you don't end up becoming a world champion. Let's just say you're a really good sprinter, but you never break into that kind of that top echelon. What would your reaction to that be?
I'd be fine. I'd be actually contented and happy because even to this day, I'm at the top of the sport, but my personality is not the sport. Most athletes, they're so intertwined and their personality is what they do. It's nothing behind it. It's just track and field. If you take the sport away from them, what are you? It's nothing else there. So for me, like I'm a model, I'm an actor, like I do all this other stuff, like so I know there's other outlets I could have gone. Like, there's other roads I could have gone down. There's different things that I'm passionate about, but it's just more or less just because I'm so good at this sport, I almost feel guilty not pursuing it because I am very talented and I know that. And that's the thing. Like I know I'm naturally talented. So it's just more or less I just need to work at it more and everything will work out the right way. But yeah, if I wasn't, it's fun. And that's what I said earlier. Like if I never get to the top of this sport ever again, like I'll be okay with it because I know I've come, I've saw, I've conquered, I've done everything I feel like I needed to do from a personal perspective, but I would still be upset because I didn't achieve the things I feel like I could achieve. But if it never happens, it's okay because I've achieved enough where I feel like I've built up enough of a resume and my story itself is so captivating from a kid from a place where no one's expect you to do well in a sport, and here I am today, and just be able to tell my story in whatever capacity I can is a big thing for me, and that's something I don't take lightly at all.
I want to ask you about the gold medal syndrome, which I don't know if
Right.
you've heard about this, but basically, a lot of athletes, I don't say a lot, but some athletes, after they win a gold medal or break through with some major accomplishment in their sport, they go through this period of anxiety, of depression, of just not feeling like their normal self, and a lot of it's tied to they basically just achieved what they've always dreamed of, is like winning a gold medal, and now that it's
Right.
over, it's kind of like, okay, well, what now, right? Like what, like, all right, cool, like got a gold medal, or cool, like won the NBA title. Like what's left out there for me to do now? Because I've achieved it. And there's always like two lanes to this, right? There's that lane, but then there's also the lane of athlete where they win and then they get addicted to winning. And they
Right.
say, man, that felt amazing. I want to do that again. Let me go push even harder.
Right.
What what lane did you fit in after your gold medal win in Paris?
Oh, like it's up. Like I've always been somebody who like naturally I'm not somebody who vocalize this as much as everybody else, but like you can see it on my face. I hate losing. Like I absolutely hate losing with a passion. And because that's something my dad still instilled in me, and I'm very thankful for him for that because it forced me to be somebody who I don't I don't take no for an answer in certain circumstances. When it comes to sports and competing, I'm not somebody who's gonna just sit down and let you just like I'm gonna try my hardest. If I finish dead last, I'll be fine. At least I tried. That's the thing, but I still won't be happy. That's kind of how it is with me. Like I don't like losing. So now like a month after we won after we finished the Olympics and I got off season, I kept asking my coach, "Can I go work out now? Can I go work out now? Can I go work out now? Can I go work out now? I want to start working out." He's like, "Jerome, stop calling me." Till he just literally like I would call him and just end the call. So then I called the assistant coach and I was like, "Hey, can I work out?" And he's like, "Sure." So I started working out a month after, like just I'm in the gym lifting, doing all this kind of stuff, and and then he's just like, "Jerome, take a break, go do something, leave, go do something." So it's one of those things where for me, it's like I'm more or less addicted to winning because it's one thing I really want to do. And I feel like I know I'm capable. I know I have the talent. I know I have the mindset and I have the drive to do it. And as I want to break the Canadian record over 100 meters. And I think I don't really vocalize it as much as I should because I really feel putting that pressure on myself to actually do it, it'll force me to work harder. But again, like it's almost like my mom always tell me like shoot for the moon, but if you land in the clouds, you're still pretty high anyway. So for me, if I shoot for the Canadian record and I don't get it, but I still go sub 10, that's still pretty cool. Anyways, I don't really care. So it's like one of those things where like I'm vocalizing what I want to do now because I feel like vocalizing it more actually help you believe it more instead of like keep it in my head, like writing it down, like telling myself this is the goal and focus on that. And I know like I have the coach, I have the system, I have the training partners, and I have the belief in myself to do it. And I seen the work I put in last year, so I know I can really do it.
That's interesting. It's almost like you're holding yourself more accountable if you vocalize it.
Yeah,
If I tell somebody, "Hey, I want to be, I don't know, the top sports podcaster in the world." Now that I've told that person, I almost feel more accountable to go achieve that goal because if I don't, that means that I have failed in like that person's eyes, right? And that person
exactly.
thinks that I'm a failure because I did not reach my goal. And
Exactly.
a perfect example of this is, I mentioned Trevor Bassett before. The podcast is actually coming out today at the day of this recording, but he had posted on Instagram. I think he had just missed qualifying for Team USA back in 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. And he posted on Instagram like, "Never again will I not qualify for Team USA." And it was like that was just the post. And ever since then, he's qualified for every Team USA. And it's like he
Yeah.
talked about it. He said putting it out there, like posting on Instagram, held me more accountable and helped to push me harder because now if I fail, I'm not only disappointing myself, I'm disappointing all these people who I told that I was going to succeed.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. I like I'm not applying more pressure because it's already pressure there because everyone expect like now since I came into this sport and I'm at the level I'm at now, everyone's expecting me to do something crazy because it's one of those things where I've been really good, but I've always just been, the same times 10 on 1, 10 0, 10 0, 10 0, 10 0. Everyone's like, okay, just waiting for the breakthrough. And I feel like I'm in the right place now, mentally and physically, to do it. Because last year was that year of like switching coaches, and I seen the results of switching coaches. It took a while, but now we're starting to see, okay, like this is where we need to go to really get where we need to get at. And I feel like I'm getting there more and more and more every day. And I think this it's gonna happen. I can feel it.
Speaking of pressure, I have to. This actually fits in perfectly. This is something that you tweeted, and you said pressure only comes to those who deserve it.
Yep.
What does that mean? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, of course, because if if you don't feel pressure in a situation, that means it's not meaningful to you. So for me, like everything I do, every time I set foot on the track, it's a high pressure situation for me because I put myself in that situation. So it's meaningful to me because I don't want to disappoint my friends, my family, and the people who support me. So for me, it's like I apply pressure to that situation because it also helps me do what I need to do at the best of my ability because I know there's people who are looking at me. Okay, you have to go out there and perform, JB. So I know that helps me get down the track as even quicker. So I know it's not something that, like me saying it or like being in a pressure situation. It's warranted. I put myself there. So I expect the pressure to come.
I want to get to the so the actual race in the Olympics, right?
Right.
So you're running the 4x100.
Yeah.
Um, Many people called Team Canada's win in that race a major upset.
Right.
What was the mentality of not just you, but the rest of the team as they were going into the race? And then for those who maybe haven't watched it or aren't aware with what happened, if you could just break down what actually happened during the race and just the feeling afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I'll address this first. Whoever think that was an upset, cool. You can believe what you believe. Because if you're looking at eight people in our eight different teams in a race, this is a foot race. Mistakes are gonna happen. We could have made mistakes too, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's to be expected." They didn't do anything in the individuals, anyways. Okay, so because the team with all the fastest guys on there, like that run sub 10 all year. Oh, so because they made the mistake, they said, "Oh, it's an upset because we win." No, it's not upset. We did what we needed to do on that day, and we came out with the win. That's kind of how it is, plain and straight. I don't care who can say whatever. They can say, "Oh, I'm a relay guy." I don't care. At the end of the day, a gold medal is a gold medal, so I don't care. But just to say, when it comes to that day, for us, like, of course, like the day before when we had the qualifying rounds, we were winning our heat, and like there's a miss up with the handoffs, and like Dre had to turn all the way around, got the baton, and then start running. Of course, like China jumped us, and then France jumped us, but we still made the final, so that's what was important. So you know, going out there the day of the finals, we all knew we need to do something special. So the thing what we did was, usually when you're qualifying, we kind of compress the marks. So then on the finals, we open them up a bit more. So we open the marks up a little bit more, and we spent a lot of time in training camp working on getting off the marks properly. So just out there telling each other, okay, yo, like let's do it, like let's trust each other, get off the mark properly, hit the tape and just move away, whenever whenever the runner is coming to you. So you know before we even went out on the track, actually, so we're in the back talking, and and I was saying, yo, remember Tokyo? I took the blame for that one, so I'm not gonna take the blame today. So I'm gonna let you guys know, like, I'm gonna be tearing down the backstretch like a bat out of hell. Just I'm telling Brendan, it's like, look, it's like, I'm gonna get to you really quick, my bro. Like, just let's go. And he's like, yeah, man, let's go. So we're just back there hyping each other up. And whenever we go out, everyone see we throw up the X, and that's we were locked in at that point. We went out there, and before Aaron gets in the blocks, he does a long strata. He looked at me, and he's like, you ready? I was like, yeah, it's time. And I do my strata down the back stretch, and I see Brendan. I'm like pointing at him, like, yo, like, I'm gonna be down there soon, and then you see him do the same thing. Andre put his finger up, was like, let's go. So, you know, starts on your marks, and then the gun went off. And after that, to be honest, I don't remember what happened. The only thing I remember is seeing Aaron coming, and I moved away from the tape, and he called me. I put my hand back, I got the baton, and I started running. And I'm going on the backstretch. And usually, when you're in a race with that much people, you can feel yourself either connected or disconnected to the race. If you're connected, you know the people are close. I was running on the backstretch and I couldn't feel anything. It just felt like it was just me and the wind, like you're driving on the highway with in a convertible. That's kind of what it felt like. It was just me and just down the backstretch just flying. I got to Brendan and I got to him super quick and I was like, oh man, that felt very short. And I hand off and I just seen Brendan kept and I just start screaming and running around the turn with him. And after that, I couldn't see anything else after that. Like I looked at the Jumbotron and I couldn't really see it because of the angle I was at. And I looked and I seen the South African guy start celebrating and I was like, oh man. And then I couldn't really see Andre. Then I see him and Aaron jumping. And then I seen we came up first. Then it was South Africa. Then it was GB. I was like, no way, we didn't just win. So I'm like, wait a minute, I got to make sure we didn't get disqualified because anything can happen. And then the state of announcement says Canada wins, and I was like, I just lost my mind and started running. That's all I could remember. I just start like I was in the stands, like I was like on the fourth level of the stands. I don't know, just random people. I don't know how I got up there. I was up there. And then I finally ran over to the guys and I started dapping them up and we start celebrating.
I mean, in terms of just like life moments for you, that has to be top three.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think that one, like because it's an Olympic gold medal, it has to go first. Say
Mm.
that's the most significant one. And I think the second one for me was Eugene World Championships because that one was also like the first time we actually won a gold medal in the 4x1 in a very long time. I think 97, I believe, 96. Yeah, 97 was the last time we won gold in the 4x1 in the World Championships.
No.
Yeah, so that was a special one.
Jerome, I have to ask. I just recently came across. I think you had retweeted it from last year, but uh, so let me set the stage here just a little bit. So when I watch the Olympics, and I would argue most people when they watch the Olympics, and you can go and verify this with ratings and viewership during events,
Right.
track and field is consistently one of the most viewed events
The most.
across the most viewed event in the
The
Olympics. I
most.
mean, that's a
Yeah.
fact. When I think about the 4x100, or I think about the individual 100, or even hurdles, or really any event, right? Like they are the most exciting events in the Olympics.
Right.
But then I think about the popularity and the popularity of the individual athletes. And while there are some that are more popular than others, I'd say just as a whole, there seems to be a disconnect between how popular the event is and then how popular the athletes are.
Right.
And you had retweeted this video from RG3 that he posted last year, which I thought was very interesting. Him basically talking about this popularity gap and why it's a thing. And
Right.
he had brought up tennis and golf as two
Hmm.
other individual sports that have seemingly gotten it right in terms of the popularity of their athletes.
Right.
Um, what do you think is lacking, like on the track and field side, of why the athletes aren't as popular? I can see you probably have some opinions on this, so I'm eager to hear it.
Yeah, I do because so I vocalize this a bunch and I think most people would disagree with me and some will agree with me, but I think at the end of the day, for this sport to be considered professional or even a thing where you know you can build the sport up to make it even more bigger. Like, let's just take a step back here for a second. Tell me a list of sports that you can find on ESPN right now that aren't like the big four, like basketball, football, soccer, like those ones. Tell me a couple.
On ESPN, they sometimes have bowling. I've seen bowling on
Okay,
ESPN.
all right, yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen they have the cornhole toss on
okay, yeah,
ESPN.
okay,
Super big sport. Cornhole is a massive audience.
yeah.
Let's see, man. I don't know what else. I don't know what else I've
You
seen
know
on
what's also
ESPN.
become a bit like is now on ESPN almost every single weekend. Pickleball.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Pickleball
Yeah.
is almost a $1 billion industry sport already. And how long? Pickleball's been around for a very long time, but track and field per a capita has had more high performance athletes participate in track and field than there is across the board, right? So then the issue that track and field has is it has a old model is trying to operate in 2024. That's the problem. You can't take something that's been around, they've been doing the same model since the dawn of time with track and field. That's not going to work. You can't take, it's almost like taking an old dog and teaching new tricks. Yes, it can work for certain circumstances, but it won't work all the time. See, the thing is, like, it's also no competition. Like, by no means I'm like disrespecting World Athletics or none of them. Like, I'm just, World Athletics is at the top of it's the top governing body for track and field, right? But the issue is when you have a monopoly that controls everything, you dictate how you want stuff to work. But if you have a monopoly and you have no competition, the monopoly controls the majority and they say and do whatever they feel like doing. So for me, my own selfish idea was if we have a separate federation that sanctions and has its own major championships at the end of the year, or figure something out that kind of works in a way where you take these athletes from here and they're signed to just this, you compete, you have say 12, 13 meets across the world, and they're every 2 or 3 weeks in this place for like 2 or 3 days. Then you travel, you go somewhere else, and it's on these specific days. So you know exactly what days they are, you know when they are, you know where to watch them, and you know how to find them. That's the thing with track and field. It's a million meets across the world, all of them being filmed, but you don't know where to find these meets to even watch them. And if you can watch them, it's behind a paid wall. That's the problem. It's like it's so monopolized to the way where everyone's making money from this except the athletes. So it's crazy where it's like it's controlled by so many different entities, but the athletes are the. So if you go to a track meet, the athletes are the last ones to get paid. How is that even possible? The people who are bringing the entertainment are the last ones getting paid, and they're the last one to find out. Wait, we don't revenue share, we don't revenue split, we don't get any of the gate, we don't get any of the ad money, we don't get nothing. The only thing you get is a prize money if there is, and then if you have a shoe deal, you get bonuses through your shoe deal structure. So I really think if there's something else, we need something like a Live Golf, like what Live did to the PGA. I'm not saying Live did something bad to the PGA. I'm just saying for a very long time, right? You had the PGA and everyone says golf is a gentleman's game. Like you respect the PGA, you do this. Then you got Live that came about. They said, you know what? We're going to be a disruptor. We're just going to come out here and do our own little thing. We're going to make this more of a party because what you have going on over here is boring. You know, like it's same model, same thing every day. You go, you can't make any noise. You just gotta sit there like, okay, they're about to tee off right now. You gotta silence, so shh. And then they tee off, and then everyone, Live. Man, it's a party jumping, people swinging golf clubs everywhere. And, you know, it's a party. It's entertaining. It brings more of a young audience to the sport. All track and field needs is a reface. You need more competition when it comes to high level competitions with more storytelling across the board. If you have 8 people in a race, why is there only a story being told about 3 people? It takes 2 seconds to do that. Hi, my name is Jerome Blake. I'm from this place. These are some things I'm interested in. Hi, my name is this. It takes 2 seconds. If you're doing what's that thing? A press conference, right? You can take if there's 8 people in a race, you can take 4 men, 4 women. They take 4 men, 4 women. It's simple. You ask one question here, one question there, one there, one there, and it's not that hard. It won't be that long. But the issue is they have their people who they want to build. And the thing is, like, it's almost like trying to market the NBA around LeBron James alone. What's gonna happen when LeBron leaves? They are struggling to try to find the next LeBron. And that's what's happening to track and field right now. There was Bolt, and then Mr. Bolt left, and then everyone is like, okay, what are we gonna do? So now everyone's struggling to find who we're gonna market the sport behind, who's gonna be the face of the sport. But that's the problem because an athlete is only going to be around for so long. But if you reface the entire thing and make it more entertaining, it'll pull more audience. And then, like what they just did the other day, I mean, they sold. Most people didn't even know this, but they sold. I mean, I didn't even know this is the thing. We just thought like World Athletics, which is a governing body, they sold the broadcasting rights to Flow Sports. I don't know if you know what Flow Sports is. If you ever seen it in their broadcasting, It is absolutely terrible. It was like Netflix streaming the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight last night.
That was bad.
Exactly. It's like that. Like, I hope I don't get a lawsuit filed against me, but damn, that's what it's like. It's terrible. Like, they're absolutely terrible. But to be respectful, it's like you can't try to make something grow by going backwards and choosing money over performances. You see what I'm saying? And it's like they're making all this money, but the athletes don't get any of it. And it's not like the meets are changing of how they're broadcasting them, how they're promoting the people in the meet. You go to a meet and it looks like there's only six people at the meet because there's only six people or stories being told about. And you go on Saturday, there's like eight people in this race, there's eight here, but like, who's this person? That's kind of what it's like. So there's no storytelling behind the athletes. And I feel like that's one of the things where I took it in my own hand and I said, you know what? I'm going to film a documentary about Jerome. I don't care if anyone watches it, but I'm going to film it. It's going to be somewhere soon. But I'm filming it because at the end of the day, like me telling my own story and like putting myself out there more is the only way people are going to know who you are and know what you've done.
That's a really good point, man. I mean, I think, I have a lot of thoughts coming out of it. First of all, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you said. I think a lot about like tennis is an example for me too, where tennis is also struggling with their athlete pay, uh, particularly when it comes to the players who are maybe outside of like the top 20, the top 50,
Right.
because tennis kind of has a similar issue where besides the four grand slams, like the other masters events and the other events, rarely if ever, I can't remember a single time that those events were televised on ESPN or any major network. You have to go to like some ATP World Tour streaming site, right? Like it's very like
Yeah.
it's not very easy. So unless you're like a diehard tennis fan, like you're probably not going to go pay extra for this streaming service to watch the Madrid Open.
Yeah.
And so it's similar in that regard. Although tennis has the four Grand Slams every year that get put on ESPN and all that, and gets a lot of publicity. Um, but like the storytelling aspect, like especially when it cut like tennis again, like you look at any of the top guys, like Federer, like obviously retired, but back in
Yeah.
his day, Djokovic, Nadal, like they all have their very unique stories. Like Djokovic comes
Right.
from a war torn country, and he talks about practicing with bombs going off in the distance and like all this stuff. Nadal comes from
Right.
Spain, like went through this academy. Like Federer had his thing growing up in this small town in Switzerland, and then rising to fame, and like so you have all these stories. You have like that makes the athlete, and that's one part that I really do agree with is the
Yeah.
storytelling. Like you look at the NBA, man, like everybody, like LeBron, growing up in Akron, Ohio, and
Yeah.
and growing up without a father, and like all this stuff, like these, it's what makes them human, and it's
Yeah.
what makes them, it's what connects fans to the actual players. When you hear
Exactly.
some of these stories that really connect you, and that's why it's so. I mean, for all the reasons that you just listed, is why track and field isn't as popular, but
Yeah.
in terms of the product on the TV, like in terms of the actual sport, like you would be hard pressed to find a more exciting event.
Come on. It's there. Man, like the product is A1. You cannot find a more entertaining, a more real and drama filled and like tension building sport in the world than track and field. That thing is intense, man. Like, because the thing is, like, if you could, and I feel like the Netflix show Sprint is kind of showing a little bit more behind the scenes, but I think they need to. I think the one thing Sprint is missing is the people they have are great. Don't get me wrong. The people they have are amazing because I know all of them. I know all of them, but I'm just saying they need to get more people in there who are more people that the masses can relate to. They need people who are actually more like. This is the thing I don't understand, right? I'm not by any means calling on anyone here, but I'm just saying you can't have somebody who is like this, right? Yeah, my name is this and I'm doing this, and the camera comes on. Yeah, my name is this and I'm doing this and this is what it is. No, don't do that. Be you. And I think that's the thing. Like the camera comes on and all of a sudden everyone is just something else. Me, man, I'm the same person. I'm gonna tell you as it is and do it as it is, and that's just what it is. I'm cold cut. I'm a piece of ham. That's it. I'm gonna tell you as it is, when it is, and what it is. instantly. So I feel like they need to, like, they're doing a great job of telling the stories about these athletes and everything, and I feel like this is going to help the sport a lot. But World Athletics need to take a page from the 2024 internet book and understand that, like, you can't just market five people because this person has an Olympic medal or this person is hyped up because of their names. No, if there's a bunch of people here, you have enough media people there to profile everyone. It takes 2 seconds. It literally takes 2 seconds. Like, you doesn't have to be like a whole long 5 minute interview. Like, you have these people come in for like a minute. You sit down for a minute, say your name, your sport, two things you're passionate about. Cool. Somebody might be able to relate with one of these two things you're passionate about. It's not that hard. Like, hi, my name is this, I do this, and I'm this. And if you do that, I think that will help. And over time, like, you build a story, you build this person up so you understand, okay, this person likes this, and they're from this place, and they have such an impactful and empowering story, so they'll be able to inspire somebody to pursue the sport. And I feel like it's one of those things where me, like, when I leave, I'd kill me dead, man, if I had my kids do professional track and field. Hell no. I mean, you can do track for fun, but you ain't doing it professionally. Mm-mm. It's not happening.
So I can't take credit for this because I heard it on the Bill Simmons podcast.
Right,
But they were talking about, because the NBA, I mean, there was that report that came out that said ratings are down
right.
this year. But the NBA is kind of in a tough spot because if you think about, and I'll relate this back to track and field, I promise. But um, like, you think about Curry, about Durant, about
Hmm.
LeBron, like all these guys who have carried the NBA in terms of
Hmm.
ratings, in terms of viewership, they're all nearing the end. I think if you look at the games that have been televised that Curry plays in, like the ratings are through the roof. Like everybody wants to watch Curry play.
Right.
But those guys are kind of nearing the end of their tenure. And then you look at the younger crop, and it's like, who is really that guy that is going to carry that younger generation? Like Anthony Edwards,
I was just
maybe,
about to say
right?
him, Ant-Man,
And,
Tatum.
but like, you look at, like, so they were talking about this on the podcast, and it was funny because I remember they had that documentary. I forget what it's called on Netflix.
Starting five.
Yeah. And they
Trash.
had,
Absolutely
yeah,
trash.
right. But they had Tatum, and Tatum was like, yeah, like, I love my son. Like, I love basketball. Like, that's pretty much it. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, far from
Yeah.
it. Like, like nothing wrong with that. Like, you do you. If that's who you are, like, great.
Right.
I just feel like, and I want to get your take on this because it ties back to ties back to all athletes.
Right.
Do you think that we're in a state where athletes are too media trained, and especially with social media, do you think that there is almost this fear, right? Like if they say something, if they do something, right, they're going to get called out on social media or it's going to go viral. They might lose a sponsorship. They might
Right.
lose whatever. And I'll end with this. I think back to, like, I mean, this was before my time, but I've obviously read about it. Like, you read some of the stuff that these NBA players used to do and say, man, like back in the 80s,
Yeah.
like Larry Bird would punch people at
Yeah.
bars. Like,
Yeah.
that would be a news story. Like, oh, Larry Bird like Hakeem Olajuwon. I just got done interviewing the author who wrote his most recent biography. Great book, by the way. Like, he would punch like players on the court. He would spit on
Yeah.
fans. It was insane. But it's
Right.
what made them. Again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying
Right.
it's what made them relatable. It's what made
Right.
them human.
Right.
What's your take on all that?
But by no, I mean, of course, I get what you're saying, but and by no means I'm somebody who's gonna say, "Oh yeah, let's do that, let's bring that back," But I understand what you're saying, and back then it was a whole different world versus now, man. You do that stuff, yeah, you're out of here. Like, the internet is
Right.
gonna grab a hold of you, and that's gonna be the end of you for sure. But I think the thing is, it's not too media trained. I think everyone is so scared because you're in a situation where if you say the wrong things about the wrong person, that is you as well. So, and I think the thing is where most athletes need to be is you need to be yourself to the point where you can still operate on the internet and in real life. Like me, I'm myself, doesn't matter what is going on because I'm not going to change who I am to suit anyone. Of course, I respect people. I have the utmost respect when I'm out in public and I know how to operate and like operate when there's people around. And of course, there's time and place for everything, right? But it's one of those things where I just think the way everything is set up right now, like we're in a situation where it doesn't matter how hard you try, like everyone's fighting for attention. And I think that's a problem because people are fighting for attention, but the wrong type of attention. Everybody wants to be media famous and clickbait famous. Like it's and they and then after you get all that, then everyone starts thinking, okay, I can't be myself anymore. I have to be careful because I have all these sponsors. I don't want to mess the money up. And that's the reason a lot of people like they protect themselves. They try to be the good person. Like they don't get in any squabbles. They don't do anything. So I think that's what makes sports itself becomes more of a thing. Like it seems almost like it's not real anymore. It doesn't really seem like it's a real fight anymore. It doesn't really seem like they're actually trying to go toe to toe. And that's the reason why now everyone's saying, oh, like the NBA, the NFL is script. Like you can see it like it's script. So the only real sport where people are saying, okay, this is actually for real, because these dudes actually punching people in the face is MMA and maybe boxing. And box. I get boxing too. It's like those are the ones where people are saying, okay, this man's actually trying to punch this guy's head off. And in track and field, like you have to go head to head with somebody every day. You can't pay nobody and say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna pay you this if you let me take this one over on you." That's not gonna happen. So, and I think it's one of those things where, like, it doesn't matter how much. Oh yeah, to go back to ratings thing, right? So the whole ratings thing, I don't think ratings is down in the NBA because at the end of the day, man, like if you can find $200 million to pay one person, ain't no way ratings is down. In track and field, I doubt any track and field athlete has ever made $200 million in 1 year. Matter of fact, in their entire lifetime, I don't know if there's one. I've never heard of one. So, but I would love to meet one that's made that much money. But at the same time, like I feel like it's one of those things where you know our sport needs more than just a reface. It needs people to come in with a different mindset of how to re reignite the love for this sport, man. Because if you really look at it, like it's one of those things where like, you go to a track meet, it's a festival, it's a carnival. You're there live and watching. Oh man, it's amazing. It's so much fun. But I think the thing is like it's just you need yeah, it just needs to be more relatable. It's just like how like you see so basically when the athletes are coming out, right? Like when like the basketball players are coming out in the NBA, right? Like when they're introducing the starting five. Like the first one come out was like and they introducing this person from Akron, Ohio, like coming in like this much, this that and these are his accolades. LeBron James, like you come out one by one, but in track and field, like it's like yeah, they do that, but like it's on the television. So like you see eight people line up down there to say the names and like and then that's it. On your marks, then you go. Like it's no real buildup. And I think the Grand Slam track thing that Michael Johnson is doing, it seems like he's doing a really good job of like marketing the right people and doing the right things the right way. And it seems like it's gonna be something pretty cool. So I think if Michael Johnson does something like that and it's actually successful, that's something I definitely love to see. Like that model gets bigger and bigger because I think if they're able to like make yeah, it's only four meets, but if they're able to add, say, six more, seven more competitions to that, like all over the world, I think it's gonna be one of those things. And then have like a major championship at the end. Imagine, right? You take so track and field, you take all the athletes that's in the sport, like at a world championship event, the same way how people qualify to go to the world championships. You do it the same way, but like except at the beginning of the year, like if you're able to take the sport and make it more professional. You weed out, you make it criterias of where so there's different levels you can compete at, and there's different leagues that some that are lower, some that are higher, and like once you're in this league, it makes it very like it's a spectrum. Like I mean, if you're up here, you're competing at the highest level. So the level one, level two, level three is just like the NBA. Like if you're in the NBA, you're in the G League, you're in the minor leagues. That's what I mean. So it's like if you're in the professional circuit, like A1. If you're in A1, you can only compete at A1 competitions. You can't drop down. I'm gonna go compete at A2. But if the pay structure is good enough, and everyone in A1 can make a living and be comfortable and be happy with what they're getting, then I think you'll see more performances, longevity of athletes will extend longer, and you have more of a product to market because it's no structure, so you can't market a product without structure, and that's the problem. They're relying on the true dieharded fans, which that's not going to be around for a very long time because more and more athletes as they get older, they're pulling their kids away from the sport. They don't want them to do it. So I feel like in like 5, 10 years, if nothing really changes, yet the viewership might be lower. Like the only time people will really be watching track is at the Olympics because only every 4 years. I've never realized that much people know who I am until like this past year. So it's like every 4 years, everyone knows who you are. But like I think the product is there. It just needs the right person to take over and come in and shake stuff up, and I think it'll be good.
Well, and just to end on this note, I mean, the thing that track and field has going for it as well is the international flair,
Yeah,
right? Like, I mean, you get a lot of pride, representing not only for the athletes or representing their own countries, but then the fans. I mean, we see it with
right.
soccer and international events. I mean, there is, obviously people have a lot of pride for the country and they want to see their country represented well. So, I mean, that's another
Yeah,
aspect that again, if an organization came in, they can play off the international
yeah,
um flair to boost the popularity, to get more
of
televised
course.
meets, ultimately again resulting in not only better pay for the athletes but just more awareness of what's happening.
Of course. And I think it's like let's also like we can just end here, but like it's one of those things where I think it's even when it comes to more sponsors, I think if you allow, I mean, yeah, you don't want to see athletes running on the track looking like a race car, but at the same time, like, you if you allow athletes to have more sponsors, right? Like, and I think that like you can put sponsors on your kits, right? So I think that's also the thing. Like when you sign a shoe deal, like it becomes an exclusive thing. You can't do certain things. For instance, like if you're signed to a shoe company, you can't do, and if this shoe company makes, say, accessories like sunglasses, you can't go and get an external sunglasses deal because this shoe company already makes them. So if you get that, you have to get that cut out your contract. They're gonna take money away because you're not signing the full contract. You see what I'm saying? So it's different things that goes in there that is like a little bit different that I shouldn't really touch on because I'm gonna get myself in trouble. But I know it's one of those things that once I start, I ain't gonna stop. I'm just gonna say what it is. But I think at the end of the day, when I get older and I leave this sport, I think the new generation that's coming up is going to change stuff because I feel there's a lot of them that's coming up that understands, and most of them are already making so much money from college with NIL deals and stuff. So I think a lot of them are going to forego like traditional shoe contracts and just do it the way they want to do it, which is go out and buy a uniform and compete in that, or make their own competition uniform and compete in that. And I think that's the one thing I've realized this year is like moving away from the traditional way of doing it is probably one of the best ways. And I think the less traditional it becomes, the more fun and the more eyes you can bring to the sport. And I think that's the important bit.
You need new energy, man. Listen,
Yeah,
Jerome, I'm rooting for not only you but all track and field athletes.
for
Like we
sure.
talked about, it's one of, if not, the most, if not the most. I mean, it's up there in terms of excitement of the actual event. I mean, I know, at least for me, anytime I watch any track and field event, my eyes are glued to the screen, and like I always
Right.
look forward to it. In the Olympics, because it's normally towards the end of the Olympics
Yeah,
when it really starts. So I am rooting for people to figure out how to get more meets televised on ESPN and other platforms, so it's more
for
accessible
sure.
to more people. So I'm in your camp. Jerome, this has been a great conversation. We've touched
Yeah.
on a lot of different stuff, but I figured I'd end it here, and I'll read you a quote, and then I'll ask you a question. So this quote is from you, and it's your advice to high school students. So you went back to your old high school, you gave a talk, and then you gave them some life advice.
Right.
You said, continue to believe, continue to work hard, trust the process of life. Whatever you want, just go out and work for it. Nothing's impossible. Everything is achievable if you have faith, belief, and trust in what you want. That was your advice to high school students. But if you could go back in time, what would be your advice to your own high school self?
It's the same thing, trust, believe, have faith in that because without trust and faith and belief, it's nothing's gonna happen. You know, like you need to trust the process of it, and I think that's the thing I did from a young age, because I understood like nothing's ever gonna be easy, I guess, because man, life is like it's not like life is like a boat, man. You're in a boat, like it's just rocking two sides. It's never gonna be smooth sailing. Like, I mean, yeah, one moment it's gonna be smooth sailing, everything's gonna be all good, and then things are gonna happen. So it's one of those things, man. I'm very thankful for the people, again, like, the people that I have in my corner. They're the ones who make me who I am today. And I'm thankful for like all the experiences that I've had from moving from Jamaica to Canada and meeting the people I've met, and, just having this close-knit community. And I'm very thankful for them as well, because without that, there wouldn't be any Jerome. So for me, I'm thankful for them and just appreciative of everything that I've achieved, and, everything they've helped me done.
Love it, man. Like I said, it's been an amazing conversation,
For
and I
sure.
hope that through mediums like podcasts, people, that's really my goal. Like, I want people to start to hear different stories from different athletes from different backgrounds, um, because I mean, there's a lot of stories out there, and it's rare that you get kind of the unfiltered version of it,
Right.
and get down to the individual athlete and what their true beliefs and values are. And so, I mean, this has been a pleasure to me, man, just to hear your journey all the way from Jamaica to Canada to Vancouver,
Yeah.
to Kelowna. It's been quite a ride, I'm sure, for you. And it's been probably quite a ride being a Vancouver Canucks fan, which we both share in common. So,
Yeah.
Jerome, before we sign off, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can follow my journey on social media. All my social media platforms is it's just my name. So Instagram. Now everyone's on TikTok, so you can find me there as well. And even LinkedIn, if you want to reach out and connect, talk about opportunities, you can reach out there, or in socials. It doesn't really matter. It's just my name, Jerome Blake. So yeah, reach out. We can get connected, and it's always good to connect with new people and have good conversations and chat about different things.
Absolutely, my man. Jerome, thanks again for coming on. It's been a true pleasure, and go Canucks
Yeah,
go.
go Canucks. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.